Greetings all, it's Max, and we're back here at JPS taking a look at some science. Did you know that all maps that conform to reality, all useful maps you've ever seen in your life, are flat Earth maps? Every single one. Now, obviously there is a concerted effort now as you look across maps to remove the grid lines and take any meaning out of maps because of things like GPS. All right? However, the maps that people rely on, such as the military, such as people in boats, they do have old charted maps with the old grid square system on here. Now, what is the importance of a grid square system? The grid square system goes up here with the little legend. It says here that each little square is 2 miles across. This lets you glance at a map and know that there's roughly, say here, 8 miles between points. 10 if you want to go end to end, because there is 5 boxes. So it's a useful map. It's a square. Did you know something else? You cannot map squares to a ball. Not with any meaning, you cannot. What do I mean by that? What do I mean? I don't know. First, let's take a look at some more maps. Grid maps here. Grid maps. Hey, look, this map has meaning because it has individual squares that are all the same square footage, same acreage, same mileage. It has meaning. Amazing. You're driving someplace. You need to know how much, if you're walking, how much space is in between all of these little boxes. And they all have a nice little legend that tells you what each box will correlate to as far as mileage. Amazing. It's a useful map. Useful. We got another one here. Look at that. Wonderful, useful maps. Okay, now let's take a look at some useless maps. How about that? There's a useless map for you. What do these little boxes coincide to? Oh, well, this is the intersection, the point of latitude and longitude. Well, you notice now, up here, if you transverse over 3 longitudinal lines, right, you've got one distance, maybe 1,500 miles, something like that. But then if you do the same thing down here, it's almost twice the distance. That's why these are meaningless maps. Absolutely meaningless. No one is ever going to use that for nothing. I'm going to go back to my grid maps. They have a grid map in here where they try to fake it. It's this one. There are several of them like this, where they have nice little squares, but you notice that they do actually get bigger squares as they go down towards the equator. And they have to, which makes it meaningless. It's a grid locator for an arbitrator thing that I believe has to do with ham radios or something. But it's meaningless to the average person. All the rest of them are grids. Hey, look at that. It's a grid. What grid are you in? You can tell where you're at. Equidistant grid. You know, the funny thing about a globe is you can't map squares to a globe, and anybody who has ever done any 3D modeling, such as myself, knows this, which is why anytime you see a 3D graphical representation of something that is not in Minecraft, mind you, it's going to be made out of triangles. This is the proper way to map a globe. Why have we not been navigating by triangles this entire time if the Earth there is a globe? Because the only way you're going to do it is with equidistant triangles. That's it. Now, what we have here is a little bit of propaganda machine. We'll get into that. We actually have an entire intelligence agency dedicated to going after flat Earth. We'll get into that. But see, we got here, we have a real map that's useful with equidistant squares and the whole mapping, you know, everyone knows how much square footage is inside one of these squares, and that's useful information. Now they have this, because they use a computer graphic and they draw a little line down to the globe, it just magically fits, see? We dragged a line, we show you the globe, right? Fantasy, and then we show you reality, and then we draw the line down there. See, you see, it just magic, it fits. It fits, right? And then they say they get it from this to over to this for a terrain map. Now, here's a question. Why not just take this and draw the line straight down to there so it conforms to reality? Oh no, we can't do that. We can't do that. Where are some of these other maps coming from? Okay? Where are some of these other maps coming from? The other one that I see is this one, which is hilarious. All right? Where does this map come from? This map, if I can move my thing here. U.S. National Grid Index map, 6 degrees by 8 degrees zone designators, 1,000 meter grid square IDs. So we know that each of these little squares is 1,000 meters, or square IDs indices, right? Do you notice what they're doing with the squares? They tilted the whole thing, and then they have on top of it, they have the nonsense of the latitude longitude lines to make the whole thing look confusing and nonsensical. But what I want you to notice here is, where does this information come from? Because obviously if you take these square lines and you continue drawing them out, you're no longer going to have 100,000 meter grid squares. Are you? No. What kind of rocket scientist thinks that this is a great idea and a great map? The National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Really? The NGA.mil. Interesting. They're not smart enough to know that you got to map things out with triangles? Because you could do it. You could map it out and do a whole grid perfectly with triangles. You could do a flat map in triangles too. Why don't you use triangles? Because it doesn't conform to reality. But why do you come out with this goofy map, and what purpose does it serve? Who is it for? NGA.mil. Fabulous. National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. They got an entire spook department trying to prove the Earth is a globe, and all of that. I'm actually quite pleased that it's a big enough deal that they warranted actually having an entire intelligence agency about it. And we'll go more into these guys in probably another video. Okay? But the other people, this has correlation to people in ham radio. And when you look up the other map that is a very similar map to that, it comes to guys who sell radios. So apparently, in areas where what the actual topography is, and you're not actually using navigation, and it's all just in the air, where it doesn't need to correlate at all to real life, we can use bendy squares. Okay, bendy squares. Because you cannot put squares on a ball meaningfully. All right, meaningfully. Right? We're going to go to here. Okay, here's the attempt at making a sphere out of Minecraft blocks. It doesn't work, guys. It doesn't work. We'll look at this one right here. You notice how, like, right here you start off good, where it's like one block and then one block. Okay, that's meaningful. Oh, now we've got 2 blocks. Now it's not meaningful. Now we got 1 block and 1 block, another 1 block. Now we have 2 blocks. You see, it's not meaningful. There is no equidistant anything in a square sphere, quote unquote sphere, made out of squares. It doesn't work. Doesn't work. As you can see right here, when you put out latitude longitudinal lines, this is a meaningless map. How many square feet are in this square down here? How many square feet are in this one? Right? You have to calculate. If you're going to transverse 3 longitudinal lines, you got to figure out where you are in relation to it and do all this extra math. Nobody does that. They do this. They do this. This is how maps work. Right? You got a legend, and it says every box is worth like a mile or something, or 10 miles. This is how realistic maps work. Now, of course, this is how they worked in the 70s, right? But now we got the internet, and we got We got satellites in space shooting us down or triangulating our position, and it's just so much better than a paper map. Well, what are you going to do when you don't have your GPS? You're going to pull out a paper map that's going to have a bunch of little squares on it. And then you're going to go on about how stupid flat earthers are. Really? Well, we're smart enough to know that you can't map squares to a globe. You can't. Not accurately and not meaningfully. Just look at the latitude, longitudinal lines on your desktop globe. It doesn't work. All maps show flat Earth. And with that, I think we're going to be out here.